Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host Luke. I hope you're doing well, hope you're all good. I've got another exciting topic for you guys today, as I try to do every week, to be honest. Well, I think they're exciting, I think they're good. If other people's, well, I was going to say, if other people don't, then they don't have to listen. But I like them, and hopefully my few rare small group of listeners, I hope you enjoyed them too. But before I get onto that, as you guys are probably used to by now, I've got to get into the business, the boring stuff first. But this one's not boring. This one is a very important company that means a lot to me, what they do, and yeah. So I am honoured to say that World of Books once again are promoting, not just sponsoring the channel, but also sponsoring this episode. So thank you to them. What that means for you guys, if you're a new listener, that you can use the promo code NERDY10 at checkout. That gives you 10% off on anything and all things on their store, from books to movies to video games, vinyl, whatever you find in there that takes your fancy. When you're at checkout, just type in the code NERDY10. That's NERDY10 or higher case, and you get yourself 10% off at checkout. So thank you again to World of Books for sponsoring the show. So get into it. So today's topic is I'm going to be talking about the show Merlin from 2008. Well, I think it was 2008, 2012, 2013 the show ran for. This is another one of those situations, and I've spoke about this before, that I'm a big lover of Doctor Who. Trust me, this all makes sense. This all adds in. But I'm a big lover of Doctor Who. I watched it since the revival, 2005, and I just love watching the show. And I spoke about this before, how the other two shows that I really, really loved, but hardly ever got to watch unless it was a rerun, was also Torchwood and Primeval. Hardly ever got to watch Torchwood because it was on around about the same time as Doctor Who, and kind of a long short story is that I only had the option of, you can only watch one or the other, because I only, my parents had control of the TV, as it should be, really. Probably different nowadays. When I was younger, your parents had control of the TV. You might, if you were lucky, you might have been able to watch like one show, but that was it, that like all week. And for me, that was Doctor Who. So I never got around to be able to watch Torchwood, and it was the same with Primeval. Like, it was on around about the same time. And again, it was like, no, you either watch that or you can't watch Doctor Who. And obviously, of course, me being a big Who head, I chose Doctor Who each time. So it was one of them shows. Now coming up to Merlin, again, it was the same problem. Merlin was on around about the same time, and it was one or the other, and Doctor Who always won. Doctor Who I always chose. So for that reason, why it's taken me so long to watch the show, because it was one or the other. And for years since, I've wanted to watch it, catch up on it, but like I could never watch it. And sometimes it would be on BBC iPlayer, which, if you live in the UK, is a streaming app for the BBC channel. Sometimes it would be on there, but it'd only be on there for a short time, and then for a long time they took it off. So I was like, well, I'll buy the DVDs. Never got around to it. Went through senior school, college, university, all that jazz. Just never got around to it. Anyway, zooming on to quite recently, I'm doing this sort of thing where I want to do rid with TV. I don't watch TV as it is. I'm not a big TV watcher. But I said to myself, what I'll do, I've got my list on Netflix, I've got my list on Disney Plus, and I've got my Amazon Prime list. So what I'll do, I've spent the last few weeks literally watching every movie, almost every TV show on Netflix, and I'm slowly going to make my way through the list. And the idea is, once I've made my way through all the lists, once I've watched everything on there, that's it. Anything new, I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to give up with streaming, and I'm just going to focus on other things. And I did. I've watched a few shows now. What I tend to do, if I like a show, I'll watch the first season. And depending if I liked it or not, I probably would be like, you know what, one season's enough. I don't need to watch any more. For example, Lost in Space on Netflix. Great first season. and it would have been interesting to see what they do next. But the problem is, each episode's like an hour long. There's about 3 or 4 seasons in total, and I felt for me, in terms of that show, I didn't need to watch it anymore. Like, I've seen enough. I've got an understanding of where the show's going, or how the characters are going to evolve. I don't need to see it. And that's what I've done. And for a lot of the shows as well, it's like, if it doesn't hook me, I'm not going to sit and watch a full season. I've just had to do this way. That way I can get through all the kind of stuff I've got on there as quick as possible. And where's my buttons? Where's the buttons on my TV? I can actually show you. Well, I can't physically show you. I can tell you, but to tell you what's on my Netflix list now, right? So we've got Event Horizon, which I've never watched, but I'm planning to watch and review for Halloween. So look forward to that Halloween. And then we've got The Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is another show that I wanted to watch, never got around to it. All 3 seasons of that on there, so there's going to be a review of that. There's loads of Studio Ghibli movies that I've got to get through. The last season of Stranger Things and Merlin. Now, the reason I'm telling you all this is to kind of give you an idea as to why I started watching Merlin, was mainly because I thought it's now or never. If I don't start watching it now on Netflix, I'll never get around to watching it. And this is one of them shows that whenever I tell anybody that I'm a Doctor Who fan, 9 times out of 10, it's always like, oh, have you seen Touchwood? No. Have you not seen Touchwood? But people understand of like, oh, Touchwood was a bit different. It was its own thing. It's the same with Primeval. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it all. And people are like somewhat shocked, but saying, okay, fair enough. It's not for everybody. But like, whenever people ask, oh, have you seen Merlin? I was like, no, I haven't seen Merlin. People are like, how have you not seen Merlin? Like, Merlin's right up your alley. And I'm like, I know. So when I saw it on my list a long time ago, when it was on Netflix, I put the whole series on. And as it is, anybody else knows who's got Netflix or any sort of streaming account, your wish list, your watch list on any of the streaming sites. I bet anybody listens to this, if you look at if you anybody's guilty of this, like, your list is huge, and for certain that you'll never get around to watching half of the things on that list. You just like to have them there, and that's the same thing of me with my wish list, is the fact of I had to get rid of it. And once I've got rid of all the wish lists, I'm no longer going to be watching anything on streaming on TV unless it interests me. Like, for example, the new Lord of the Rings show. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, but I'll be honest with you, the TV show just doesn't appeal to me. I like The Witcher, but I've played all the games and I've read some of the books. I don't feel like I need to watch the show, no matter how good Henry Cavill is. So I skipped over that one. And I know there's probably a lot of people listening to this going, oh my God, how you could just skip The Witcher? It's because I just don't have the time. I have other things that I want to do. I have books I want to read. I've got a book that I'm trying to write. I've got this podcasting that I love to do, so I'm doing it so that if I can get rid of it, I can get rid of that distraction. I've got more time to focus on the things that matter. And if in the future good shows come up and people have said they're really amazing, then by all means I'll maybe one day look into them and watch them, and if they're really, really good, do a review. But apart from that, that's just my focus and aim. So that's kind of to give you a backstory of why it's taken me so long and why I finally got around to watching Merlin now. So there's that. That's the introduction. I'm going to take a quick break now, and then once we come back, we're going to start talking about Merlin and my first impressions of season 1. In total, let me have a look. While I've got Netflix up, might as well have a look. So currently, right, so I've got season 2, episode 1 to start. I haven't started that, but there's 5 seasons in total. It ended 2012. That was the last season, season 5. Okay, yes. So just wanted to make sure I was in the right position. So anyway, we're going to take a break, and then we come back. We're going to start talking about Merlin. Yeah. So let's get into it, shall we? And we're back. So, first of all, I want to start off with my overall impressions. Overall, I loved it. I enjoyed it. Everybody who recommended it to me throughout the years, and all the people that were gobsmacked that I hadn't seen it before, they were all right. This is right up my alley. I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I have some questions, some things that kind of little niggles, like for example, one thing that I found funny, but other people might, not notice. And obviously, I understand they have to do this because that kind of makes the drama, and that kind of adds the whole mystical sort of wizardry, sorcerer kind of stuff. But as I was watching it, it felt like every episode they kept inviting evil-looking people into the castle, and there were moments where I'm sitting there going, the guy, like some of them look innocent, but then you get some people that look seriously, there's evil, like conniving. And I'm sitting there going, is there nobody watching? Like last week, we had somebody try to poison Arthur and kill the king. Why are we not doing spot checks? You know what I mean? Why are we not sort of stopping people being like, what's your business here? Why are you here? Do you mind if I search your luggage or like your little rocks, like little bag? I don't know what little pouch thing to make sure you haven't got no like evil snakes and spiders and stuff in there, just to kind of make sure you're not going to kill me or the king or destroy the kingdom. You know what I mean? I get why they do it, because if they did do that, like they would hardly be any sort of story. Like every episode would just be, not as like suspenseful. But there were many moments where I'm sitting there going, "Why are you inviting that person to the castle? Where are the guards? Why are there no guards literally on guard, making sure that these shady people don't enter the castle?" It just means I'd like to think, like we've seen a lot of these movies, and I've read a lot of sort of the medieval books and through history. The castles were somewhat open. You could freely roam. You could go into the castle somewhat. You couldn't go in, but you could go into the grounds of the castle and mooch around as a small little sort of town and kingdom around it. But you couldn't actually go into the castle without invite, because the guards were there. But it seems like in this kingdom, in the Arthurian legend, that come on in, if you find a room and take it, enjoy. That's just what it feels like. But that's just me being sort of nitpicky. That's not really a problem with the show. Like, again, I understand why they do it, because it adds the suspense and adds the drama and all that. But it was just that small little thing that made me giggle of like, why is nobody checking people? Like, this guy's obviously evil. How is nobody seeing it? Like, even the moments where Merlin, like, he's quite clever, but there are sort of moments where I'm like, how is Merlin not seeing this? How have anybody not seeing this? But my overall impressions of the show is that I really enjoyed it. It especially the first season. It works well as introducing the characters, introducing the lore. Because I'll admit, like I know the Arthurian legend to an extent from watching Sword in the Stone, the Disney one, and a few of the live action ones. Again, I'm a big fan of medieval history, medieval Britain. So I'm somewhat akin to the whole sort of legend, but I won't sit here and go, I know everything. I think about Arthur. I haven't read the book, the Knights of the Round Table. I know a few of them, but the point that I'm trying to get at is the fact of the TV show in the first season does a good job setting up easily and understandably the world of the Arthurian legend, the world of Arthur, the world of Camelot, the different sorcerers, and who Merlin is, who Arthur is, who Morgana is, who Sir Lancelot is, and the dragons and so on and so forth. And it slowly starts to trickle it away. And like, it's still fanciful and it's still high fantasy in a way, but obviously it just does a good job of slowly drip feeding it to you each episode, to the point where you get to the end of the first season, and you're fully caught up with how everything works, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys, how the magic works, who Merlin is, who Arthur is, and how they become such good friends, and how they're so loyal to each other. And yeah, it just works so well as a show to build up that foundation. And there was never a moment like the way I am with shows. I've said this before in prior episodes. I don't like watching episodes. Like, I don't like binging TV shows. Like, I might, like, if it's a show that I like, I might watch 2 to 3, depending on how long they are, and then I'll take a break, go do something else, and come back. I know a lot of people like to binge watch if they can. I don't. I like to kind of drip feed myself and kind of like slowly immerse myself into the world organically, instead of just like all in one and then watch it in a day and be like, "Oh, that's it. I've watched everything. What do I do now?" I like to take my time. But with Merlin, even though each episode was about 40 to 50 minutes long, there was still sort of that thing of like, I want to keep watching. Like, this was that, it just hooked me. It was like I had to check, because I generally thought that Russell T Davies, who did the writing and did some of the show running for Doctor Who, I generally sort of thought that maybe he had hand in writing this, because it had a bit of the Russell T Davies ness in it. But from all my research, I couldn't find anything on that he had any hand in writing it. But it had his sort of style on it, had his kind of zhuzh, if that's even a way to explain it, you know what I mean? Had his flavour on it. and it had me hooked that I just wanted to keep watching. But I had to kind of restrain myself, being like, no, you've watched like 4 or 5 episodes today, save some. So what I ended up doing, because there's 13 episodes, I just gave myself like 4 each, and I managed to get it done within about 2 weeks. Was like taking a few breaks and watching other shows, so I didn't like over sort of because that's the problem when you over absorb yourself in something. The potentiality it can get stale and boring, and I didn't want that for this show. So I kind of would watch a few, go off, watch something else, do something else for a while, maybe a day or two, then come back and watch it. And even like I loved it. And like my mum, she's not really big into these sort of things, but my mum was really interested in. My brother was, again, he has a small attention span, so when it came to this show, he was interested in it, and he was interested in the sort of magic and the dragons and the whole Arthurian legend. So it just works well as hooking you. It works well as a TV show. So, my overall impressions on the show is, especially well, season one, fantastic season, fantastic introduction to characters, introduction to world, introduction to how it all works, and it just puts you on the right foot for season two. Again, I don't know anything about season two. I haven't seen it yet, and I've told all my friends that have seen Merlin not to tell me anything about what happens next. Um, so that's my overall thoughts of season one. As for the characters, so let's start with the main character Merlin. I loved Merlin. Merlin in season one, I would imagine that he grows up a lot more, as the seasons go on. I would imagine so. I don't, not that I want him to, but I would imagine that as he gets stronger with magic and is more responsible, that he starts to grow up more. But in season one, he is still rather sort of teenagery childishness. He plays pranks and jokes on Arthur. Arthur himself plays jokes on him. When actually they first meet, he hates him. He's like, I really despise him, and like he tries to basically stand up for somebody, and Arthur like makes him sort of go on then, like, you keep pushing it, let's have a fight, and end up having a little duel, which like Merlin sort of cheats. He uses magic to kind of make Arthur fall, and he wins. But like Merlin is a very sort of interesting character. Like he has many sort of moments in this where he has moral dilemmas where like he's still learning to be a magician. He's still learning how to control his powers, but how he uses them in his mind, I'm using it for good. I'm using it for the betterment of somebody else. But in doing so, it always seems to be the fact of you do the right thing, but the wrong thing happens. Like for example, there's an episode where you meet Sir Lancelot for the first time, and Sir Lancelot, he wants to be a knight, and as we all know from the Arthurian legend, Sir Lancelot does become a knight of Arthur's Round Table, um, but he can't be a knight because he's not a noble blood. So Arthur uses magic to kind of basically cheat. He uses magic to forge a document, um, and present that to Lancelot. So Lancelot can give it to the king and be like, "Look, I am of noble birth. I am noble blood. I am worthy of being a knight." Anyway, it falls down, and like they accuse Sir Lancelot of fakery, and they dishonor him, and all the knight stuff, and then sort of Merlin tries to help Lancelot sort of prove himself that even with not being noble birth, he's still worthy of being a knight of the Round Table. Um, so there are a lot of moments like that in the show where Merlin, he sometimes makes mistakes, but he does make up for them. Like he notices what he's done wrong and he learns from them. And each episode, you can tell that he's learned from his prior mistake, because you do see that a lot in TV shows where you have a character one episode they will make a mistake and then learn from it and then make the same mistake 2 3 more times in the next episode, and you have that moment of like they don't learn from their mistakes until the end of the season. With this one, you can see the gradual sort of evolution of Merlin. You can see that he's slowly starting to realize, I made a mistake here, but I've learned from it. I'm not going to make that same mistake again. And he doesn't, and he grows more wise, as he should do, because as we know, Merlin, being who Merlin eventually becomes, the character of Merlin, he needs to be wise. You can't have a character that's constantly making the same mistakes and then somewhat tell us, oh, he's making the same mistakes, but he learns in the end. Of like, no, he needs to learn as he go, because that is the character of Merlin. So, character Merlin's fantastic. I didn't write down the actor's name who plays Merlin. Absolutely fantastic. Next to Merlin, you have Arthur. Again, Arthur, I didn't get the name of the guy who plays Arthur. I haven't seen him in anything else. I think I've just seen him in Merlin. I can't think of anything else I've seen him in. But again, fantastic. The relationship he has with Merlin, you can see they kind of hate each other at first, despise each other if anything, and they slowly start to love each other. And my friend of mine, it was a play on words. What was it? Was it um Merla Merla? Because like my friend of mine, she basically said there's this whole sort of like subculture of this like whole romance sort of thing between Merlin and Arthur. How like they got this really cute sort of romance sort of thing, and they kind of mix the names together. I think it was called Merthan or Merlin and Arthur. I don't know. I wish I wrote it down, but look, it was a play on words, and she was like she was telling me about how the seasons go on, even though I didn't even though I didn't want to know, she told me how the seasons go on. Their bromance gets really, really strong, which I'm glad to see because again, they should be sort of close companions because again, Merlin is Arthur's closest confidant. So they should have that romance, and I like that. And again, it's organic. It's not forced. It's not the fact of oh, I hate you now, I love you. It's the fact of they slowly begin to respect each other, to understand each other, especially how Merlin starts to realize that the key to the kingdom, the key to making sure that the kingdom prospers and that there is peace in the world, Merlin needs to, you know, guide Arthur and help him in any way he can. And once he realizes that, he slowly starts to understand that there is good in Arthur. That Arthur is not much of a sort of spoiled brat prince as he seemed at first. That he's actually a generally good person. That he wants to do good in the world. He just needs a bit of guidance, as we all know from sort of the story of Merlin and the story of Arthur. So again, that's organic, that works. Next one we have Gaius, who is Merlin's sort of well, so Merlin's the apprentice of Gaius. So Gaius is his teacher. He tells him sort of teaching him how to use certain magics and how to use certain potions. He is the potion master of Camelot. Again, Gaius is a fantastic character, really, really interesting. I am interested to see as to where he goes because I feel like there's a lot of secrets in Gaius. I feel like he's hiding a lot of stuff, and slowly with each episode, we find out his relationship with the king, his relationship with the kingdom in general, his relationship with magic. So I feel like there's a lot hidden with Gaius. Not evil hidden, just things he's not telling people he's kept secret. And we slowly learn some of those secrets. But I feel like there's a lot more to Gaius. But again, fantastic character, really interesting. I look forward to seeing them a lot more. Morgana again. I know the character Morgana to be an evil sorceress. Season one, she doesn't seem quite evil. She seems quite kind, quite friendly, quite nice. You know, the counter opposite to evil in all ways. We can see that there is a slow evolution to the Morgana character in season one, that she is becoming aware of her magical abilities, her aware of her magical powers, her ability to be a prognostic. Oh, I had the word to my tongue. I'm going to say pre-nog for short, but it's somebody who can sleep, who can see the future. You know, when they sleep, they can see what is the coming events, and she does. Gaius gives her a potion to help her sleep, because whenever she sleeps without the potion, she dreams of the future, and it's usually a bad things to come. Things with Arthur, things with the kingdom, things with people that in her life. So there is that slow sort of trickle down of we can see that she's slowly starting to despise not just the king, but Camelot in general, but mostly at the moment the king. Um, but there is one moment in one episode where that sort of turned around, that she's starting to go from hating the king to start of understanding him a bit more. It's hard to explain without going to spoilers, and I don't really want to spoil it because, like, even though I know this show from 2008 and all that 2012, like, there's probably loads of people listening to this who have already seen it. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But I don't like to spoil anything. Like, that people might be listening to this review who's never seen Arthur before, and I might convince people to go and check it out. It's currently on Netflix in the UK. As for the American Netflix, I don't know. But I don't want to spoil it, but it just seems interesting. Again, one thing, as I mentioned in my first impressions, was that the show does a good job of taking these characters and slowly evolving them organically. It doesn't rush you to be in the fact of Morgana's good, now she's evil. You know, Arthur's a dummy, now he's brave. You know, Merlin was a child, now he's wise. Like you have to earn it. The characters have to earn it, and they do. They each episode they slowly, organically, you know, begin to become who they are in the legend. You know what I mean? They're not evil at all. They're not bad. It's kind of interesting because there's one episode in this, and it makes me fun. It's got nothing to do with the show, but it was kind of weird. Like I haven't seen the show Sex Education. I have now, but when I was watching Merlin, I hadn't seen the TV show on Netflix Sex Education. Which, by the way, big fan. I love it. I binged watched all 3 seasons. I can't wait for season 4. But I've grew up with Asa Butterfield. Asa Butterfield, who plays Otis in that show. I grew up with him. Big fan of him, and it was weird because I was watching Sex Education while I was watching Merlin, and it was just weird seeing because there is one episode. The reason this kind of is relevant, there is one episode where Asa Butterfield, he's a druid. He's a young boy, young lad, just really really young, and he would have been in 2008, but it's a young lad, young boy, watching him in Merlin and then watching Sex Education and watching him talk about sex and having sex. It was very much a fact of this is strange, isn't it? This is rather weird, and it was weird watching Sex Education because again I've grown up with Asa Butterfield. I think he's a bit older than me, but we've grown up together. You know, I've grown up watching. I've watched him grow up on TV. It's just a bit weird watching Sex Education and be like, whoa, I've just watched Merlin. You were a young kid. Now you're talking about sex. It's like, whoa, this is strange. This is a very sort of Twilight Zone moment I found myself in, but yeah, Little Asa Butterfield. I don't know why I call him Little Asa Butterfield, but yeah, Little Asa Butterfield appears in this show as a druid. I can't remember his name, but he kind of foreshadows a villain for not just Merlin but for Camelot, which kind of strange how the fact of Merlin saves him, but we have to kind of follow the law. Maybe, hopefully, as the seasons go on, we're going to get reintroduced to that character. But before I move on from the characters, I do want to give one sort of mention that. Oh, I forgot to wrap up Morgana. As I mentioned, Morgana, interesting character, and I do look forward to seeing her character and seeing where she goes, if she becomes full evil, or if they do a twist on her character where she's semi-evil, quasi-evil. She's a bit evil, but she has a kind heart still. Because I can see that, I can see that she's still quite good, that she is still inherently a decent person within herself. So we'll see what they decide to do with her. But anyway, as I mentioned, I want to give a special mention to the late great Sir John Hurt. I'm a big fan of John Hurt. Every movie that he's been in, I've enjoyed. I've loved. 1984, love it. John Hurt, it was a fantastic actor, and I knew he was going to be the voice of the dragon. I already knew that, but it was just nice coming into it and then just to see. Well, you don't see him obviously. You see a dragon, a 2008 TV CGI dragon, which is not great, but it's a TV budget. You kind of you push that to one side. It's not. This is before streaming. Okay, this is back when TV shows didn't have millions and millions of pounds spent on them. This is like when they were quite simple. But that's not the point. It was just mystical to actually see a dragon with John Hurt's voice. And again, it just kind of made me miss him more. I think the last thing that I saw him in was he was in Doctor Who. He played the War Doctor, and that was the last thing I saw him in. And it was nice to kind of go back and be like, oh, yes, John Hurt, that's nice. I think he was doing this before he became a knight, before he was knighted Sir John Hurt, because whenever it comes up in the credits at the end, instead of saying Sir John Hurt, it just says John Hurt. But either way, it makes sense why he was knighted. He was a fantastic actor through and through, and it was just nice. And I want to give a special mention of his character. I'm gonna butcher the name. Kilgraf. Is it Kilgraf? Kilgharrah. Kilgharrah. But yeah, I just want to give a special mention because it was just nice to see that character again. Really just makes my heart melt because I miss him so much. He's one of my favourite actors, and when he died, it was such a hard thing to deal with. But that's life, I suppose. But yeah, so quick little sort of special mention for John Hurt. But that's all the characters. So that's the first impressions. That's the characters. I'm going to take another break. and then we're going to talk about my favorite episodes, and then my overall thoughts and what I'm looking forward to for season 2. So let's have a quick break, and then we'll see you in the next one. Right, so my favourite episodes. Before getting to that, though, I do want to have a quick mention because as I was going through my notes, I do want to make clear there are other characters in this show. But the reason I just chose those ones because the ones I was most interested in, like the King's interesting, and a lot of all the other characters, like Sir Lancelot comes in. We only seen for one episode, but I quite like him. I'm interested to see where that goes. Like I said, there are loads of other characters that appear throughout the show, but I just mentioned those ones because those ones I'm interested to see where they go, and obviously they're being the most important sort of characters in the Arthurian legend. But there are loads of other characters. But anyway, I'm glad I could clear that up because I was worried that other people might get a bit confused. But like, oh, I'm sure there was other characters. Like, yeah, there is. I just decided to neglect them because I just wanted to talk about my favorite ones because it's my show. I can do what I want. Leave me alone, goddamn. God, I do apologize. Where was I? Yeah. Okay. So, get back into it. Right. So, favorite episodes. I've only picked out a few. They're all good. Like each one of them's good, but I picked out some of my favorites. So, first one being The Gates of Avalon, episode 7. So Morgana becomes concerned when she dreams that Arthur is murdered by a young girl. Arthur then falls in love with the girl from her dream. This one's really interesting. This one's quite sort of mystical. This one deals with, I'm not sure what they are. They're like water fairies, sort of kind of like sirens sort of thing. Basically, this young woman comes into the castle and she basically woos Arthur off his feet and kind of using magic kind of lures him away. And this is where we start to get the first sort of inklings that Morgana is a lot more powerful than she knows, and that she is aware of and we're aware of. And all the other, and Merlin, for especially, like, is more aware that she can do a lot more than what we think. And this whole precognition, yes, I said it first try, yeah. But this whole precognition that she does, that she can see that there's evil coming, and whenever she meets this girl, she tries to warn Arthur off, and Arthur's like, well, you're jealous, you're jealous of me, you like, because obviously Morgana likes Arthur, but she's kind of playing hard to get, like, she wants Arthur to kind of make the first move, sort of thing. But Arthur, being who Arthur is, kind of doesn't make any moves, so she's always constantly trying to kind of make him jealous and kind of sort of notice her, really. But look, I'm here, I like you, but I can't tell you. I want you to notice me, to like me, and that sort of thing. So there is sort of that character dynamic where, like, Morgana's like, she sees that Arthur's not seeing reason, so she seeks counsel in Merlin. It was like, look, we've got to help Arthur. He's making a big mistake. He's going to make it, a huge mistake. Like, we've got to save him because something bad's going to happen. And again, same thing that happens with Morgana. Merlin tries to talk to Arthur. Arthur, same thing, like, she's of my life. I'm going to get married to her. Tells the king. King's like, no, fucking, you're joking. Like, Arthur's like, no, I'm not joking. And then the king's like, yeah, shut up. You're just a child. You're not getting married. Leave. Like, be gone. This is your first time love. This will pass. It's like he doesn't use those words, but like, it's a very like Romeo and Juliet sort of phrase of like, it's just like a one night sort of love sort of thing. It will pass within a week. You'll meet some other young lady and blah 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 blah. That's kind of in layman's terms what he says, of like, no, you're not going to get married. Sort of like, be gone. I've got more important things to deal with. So he goes off in secret to try and marry this girl, and she ends up hypnotizing him, takes him into the woods, and tries to drown him. And the whole idea behind it is the fact of, if you can kill somebody of noble birth, we will allow you to once again join your fairy brethren. Obviously, Merlin comes in, stops it all from happening, and saves Arthur. And Arthur's like very much of like, these, like, kind of like a Ron in Harry Potter, where he's like, oh, these women are trying to kill me, and they have a sort of laughing joke. But I really liked it because it was very sort of mystical. It was very sort of, full fantasy, high fantasy, very sort of interesting dynamic, and I just love that kind of, like, the whole show is very much the factor, but I just enjoyed that moment because it was just you had sort of the tension between the king and Arthur, and you had the tension between Morgana and Arthur, and Merlin and Arthur, and everybody's sort of friendships was tested. It was really, really interesting. So I love that episode. Another episode that I didn't write down, which I thought I did write down, but I'm looking at now, which I'll quick mention, Excalibur. At Arthur's coming of age ceremony, the celebration is suddenly interrupted when a mysterious black knight crashes the proceedings. This one's a very interesting episode, and it deals with basically the forging of Excalibur, and that why the sword's so powerful and why it is so important, not just to the kingdom but to Arthur in general. And no spoilers like I did for the last episode. This one is very integral. This one is a lot to the lore, so I won't spoil anything. But from the end of this episode, it kind of answers the question of how the sword ended up in the lake, and hopefully that then leaves it the fact of where Arthur will eventually find it again when he is worthy of it later on in the story, which I'm sure as the seasons go on, Arthur will become a lot more worthy, and then eventually he will get the sword and he will be worthy of said sword. But at the moment, at the end of this episode, he's not worthy to wield Excalibur yet, but he will do. So Merlin hides it away. Really, really interesting. Really deep into the lore. I loved it. And there was this huge contention between Merlin and the dragon, Kilgarath, John Hurt's character. Really, really interesting. Really fascinating. Loved it. The next episode of that, episode 10. So you got this one I really, really loved. It's called The Moment of Truth. So Merlin is stunned when his mother arrives in Camelot, bruised, battered, and desperate for help. Their village has been attacked by a ruthless band of bandits. The reason I love this episode so much is because we see another side of Merlin. Up until this point, as I mentioned, we've seen a childish Merlin. He's still learning, he's still becoming, as I mentioned, very wise as the episodes go on. But we're still seeing a Merlin that is quite sort of, gung ho, very young, very sprightly, adventurous. And it's at this moment that we realise that there is another side to Merlin. That once he goes back home to his village, that his best friend sort of feels like he's been a Merlin's abandoned him and the village and his family to go off and do his magic thing that they can't talk about because it's illegal in the kingdom to be magical. It's against the law. You can face death, hanging and burning. So his family, his friend mostly feels like he's abandoned. So once Merlin hears that his village is being attacked by bandits, he has to go back. And within doing so, he then takes Merlin goes with him, and Merlin takes a few nights, even though the king said no, we're not doing it. Because the village is in another part of the kingdom and it's not their land, and if he marches people into that land it could start war, which I get it, but at the same stage it's very much like Arthur's like, screw it, Merlin, I'm here for you, and their relationship gets stronger. We learn more about Merlin and his past, how he grew up, his friends, his family, his mother, and you just see another side of him. You see a side of Merlin that's brave. Not saying he wasn't brave, but you see a very side of where he's very selfless. He's very there for everybody. Like, he's very kind and he will try to help as much people as possible. It's just a very sort of eye-opening sort of story. You learn more about Arthur. You learn more about Merlin, but again, in a way, yeah, I would say you learn more about Arthur. You learn that he is more than just what we've seen up to this point. He's very loyal to his friends. He's very loyal to Merlin. He'll do anything for Merlin, and vice versa. Merlin will do anything for him, and their relationship sort of grows. It's very sort of beautiful. It's very lovely. There is sort of sad moments in this episode. There are sad moments in this story, but it all hardens the resolve of who the character Merlin is and his relationship with everybody around him. So I really liked it for that. My next one is episode 11. This one hurt. It hurt because, okay, people are going to laugh at me now, and I understand why, but I don't care. Right, so I am a lover of animals. I'm a big lover of animals, and this one deals with sort of the killing of a unicorn. Unicorns are, yes, they're mystical creatures. They probably never existed, but I love sort of unicorns. I love dragons. I love all sort of fantasy sort of things. So when Merlin killed, I mean not Merlin. When sorry, I'm getting my words tongue tied. There, when Arthur kills the unicorn in this, it did bum me out. I was like, I hate you. You know, is that moment of like, what? How could you kill something so beautiful? And even Merlin was like, I can't believe you killed something so precious. You know, and even Merlin goes like, there's unicorns are so rare in this kingdom. Why kill them? You know, and it says that moment between Merlin and Arthur was like, I can't believe you somebody I never thought would do anything like this would kill something so beautiful and so precious. You know, it's a very much heart sort of like, not just for that, but like I'll read the blurb because I forgot to do it because I was talking about unicorns. But anyway, it goes. The Knights of Camelot cheer when Arthur slays a unicorn, but a curse descends upon the city. Aurora reveals that Arthur unleashed the curse. Um, Basically, what happens is because Arthur kills something so pure and so innocent, that the whole kingdom of Camelot gets cursed. So their grain sources, which, because obviously they eat grain, they don't eat sort of like microwave meals or anything like that. You know, they eat grain and they eat wheat and that sort of things. No microwaves in sight, sadly. They weren't invented yet. Um, or McDonald's or Subway, anything like that. But basically, their grain basically goes rotten. Haven't got none left to make any food. The water supply is sand. People are getting ill. Sort of the world's sort of to go into sort of decline really. And Merlin is approached by this guy called I just pronounced the name and now I can't pronounce it. Aurora. I'm going to pronounce it Aurora. I don't think it's spout Aurora, but I'm going to pronounce it Aurora because it's easier. But this mystical being in white comes along and he basically says to Merlin, like, Arthur is, because he's killed something so pure. I am the guardian of the last few unicorns, and to prove that, to make up for the fact of what he did, Arthur now needs to go through challenges to prove that he is worthy. He is a good person, and as the story goes on, he goes for different challenges, and you, the watcher, like Arthur, don't know that he's currently being challenged. He just decides it's all down to how he decides to deal with each situation that appears in front of him, means how the outcome. So there's one guy where he finds a peasant stealing grain. And the peasant is like, I'm trying to feed my family. I only want enough to feed my kids. That's it. Like, I didn't get too much. I just got enough to feed them. Please don't kill me and all that. And Arthur was like, yeah, leave. I don't want to see you in here again. The guy goes to leave and he goes, before you go, here's a few bag of grain. Feed your kids. Don't come back, because if you come back, I can't, defend you, especially if you get caught by any of the guards. Just leave. And the guy goes to leave and he turns around and basically says to him, like, you have, succeeded in your first trial, that you have compassion for others that don't have nothing. And because of that, the food starts to return to Camelot and people can eat again. And then slowly but surely he gets Merlin and Arthur. Well, Arthur mostly. Merlin's just there to kind of observe and help and guide him. But Arthur goes through challenges, and each time he gets a challenge, the water comes back. Less people start being ill, being sick, and eventually the last sort of trial is very much of a test between how much Arthur cares about Merlin and how much Merlin cares about Arthur. And it's a very sort of wonderful end to that episode. Obviously, there's two more episodes, so the season doesn't end at that. But there's a lovely little sort of last trial that they go in, and you can see how much of like Arthur cares about Merlin, that he would sacrifice himself not just for the kingdom but for his friend Merlin. And it's very, very sort of wonderful and very loving, and it's just nice to see that their relationship at this point is so solid and so sort of strong, that you can, again, like, it's organic, it's not forced upon it, it's so organic, the way they care about each other and they love each other, and that bromance that they have, that it just works, because that needs to be there, because Arthur needs to trust Merlin and Merlin needs to trust Arthur, for them to basically guide each other, mostly Merlin guide Arthur when he becomes king, and so on and so forth, and as the Arthurian legend goes. So those are my favorite episodes. All 13 episodes are amazing. Really, I just loved them all. But there are just a few that I wanted to mention that I liked because of the relationship between the character building, mostly of how it just builds the characters and how we learn more about each character and we learn what each sort of character's goals and who they are as a person, and what they're trying to do, and if they're trying to be good, and if they're evil, and so on and so forth. It's just, I like those sort of character building sort of stories. Most people call them fodder stories, but I like it. I like those stories that slow down almost to a halt just to kind of give you character development. I like those kind of stories. Anyway, moving on. My overall thoughts and looking forward to season two. Um, Overall thoughts, as I mentioned, first impressions. I love the show. It does a great job in setting up everything. What I'm looking forward to in season two is I just want more of a solidarity. I want more of the contention, because even though that Arthur and Merlin are quite solid by the end of season one, episode 13, even though the relationship's quite solid, their bromance, whatever you want to call it, um, I want a bit more contention. Because I don't want to sit here and believe that after one season they're best friends forever. I want there to be moments where of sort of doubt, and sort of moments of like, I thought we were friends, that sort of thing. And it's not for the drama of it; it's just for the fact of, in those moments where your friendship is contested, that's when you have the resolve of understanding how much you care about each other. Because, as I mentioned, you need that sort of dynamic to kind of show and kind of fortify a character's relationship to another character. You have to have those moments of struggle to understand, and for the characters to understand how much they matter to each other and why they need each other. So I want more of that. I want more of the sort of interest into the Morgana story. Seeing if she really does become pure evil, because at the moment she's, again, like I said, she's very sort of iffy. There are moments where you think, oh, she's going on the evil path, and then at the last second she does a full U-turn and does good. So is she evil? Isn't she evil? Are they doing a twist? I want to see if they do a twist. I want to see if they keep her as the character Morgana is. Is she going to become full evil? I'm interested in seeing that. I'm interested in seeing more of John Hurts and the Dragon, which I'm sure I will do. But I want to see, because by the end of it, Merlin and the Dragon's relationship is a bit sort of on ice at the moment. No spoilers, but there are certain things that happen which kind of strains their relationship and strains their trust for each other. So I want to see more of that, more contention. I want to see more magic. Hopefully, because obviously these are 5 seasons, so I would imagine that when they do season two, bigger budget. So that means we're going to get more special effects, more magic use, maybe more characters, more set pieces. I just want to see the evolution, and I would imagine, as like I said, it had 5 seasons. It had the budget, and I'm guessing it was popular enough to do those 5 seasons. So, as I say, I'm just expecting more grandioseness. Then again, even if it doesn't become grander, um, that's still fine, as long as I'm happy if it stayed to what they were doing in season one. But like I said, I just want to see the evolution of the characters and the story and the world, and it slowly start to grow. And Arthur and Merlin becoming Merlin, and Morgana becoming Morgana, and so on and so forth. So, oh, also, I hope they fix the security on the castle. As I mentioned at the beginning, I just hope that they finally started to learn from their mistakes, and they do a lot more spot checks, a lot more kind of like, hold on a second, you look shifty. Can you do magic? What's in your pouch? Have you got any that's it, poison? Throw him in the dungeon. Get him out of here. Try to kill the king, did you? Yeah, 2 guys tried that last week, didn't work. Merlin thwarted them. That's it. Move on. You know, so hopefully they fix the security. Probably won't, because if they did, then they wouldn't be a series. Series 2, 3, 4, 5, and all that jazz. So I'm just interested to see what they do next. I didn't want to start season 2 yet. I wanted to start season 2 after I did this review, mainly because I didn't want it to taint my views on season 1. Because for all I know, episode 2 of season 2 could be like a huge game changer, and I didn't want to taint that. I just wanted to go in sort of like glowing blind, being like, I've seen season 1. I thought this and this and this and this and this. I don't know anything about season 2, but I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. So I haven't jumped ahead, but after I do this episode, I will begin watching season 2 soon, and then we'll do because like I said, there's 5 seasons, so I'll do a season by season breakdown of each season as I've done with this one. Because as I mentioned, I really enjoyed it. It's really a lot of fun. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the rest of the seasons if it's basically carrying on what it's done so far. I have no doubt that I will just love it even more, and that this will be a show that I think finally I've liked Doctor Who, and then hopefully eventually I can get around to watching Touchwood. And then one thing I want to mention, I was going to mention Primeval, not really that important, but anybody who's been listening to this or anybody follows me on Twitter knows that I'm a big fan of car boots. I love going to a car boot, and I went to a car boot not last week, the week before with my nan, and this person had a box full of DVDs and box sets, and in that box set was season 1 to 5, complete every season of Primeval. I was gonna get it, didn't get it, because I thought, well, I've got no space for it. But I regretted it all the way, and I thought, oh god, I could have watched it. I thought, but then, no, it's on and I looked everyone on TV, and unless you pay for BritBox, you can't watch it. And I figured, oh, for God's sake. And what annoyed me is that I went, oh, maybe I can buy it offline. I looked online, CX, eBay, everywhere I looked. This box set is a collectible. This box set is like 40 pounds to 50 quid. It's an expensive box set. Even the cheapest I could find was 35 quid. You know, um, it's a very expensive box set, and this woman was like, I think she was giving away a lot of them for like 1 to 2 quid. So it still pains me to my core that I never picked up that box set. Seriously, because I was thinking in the way hard, like that would have been some great content. I could have like done a season by season of Primeval. So I'm on the hunt for Primeval currently because I refuse to pay for BritBox. Currently, anyway, I do plan to get in BritBox in the future, but right now I don't have the time to pay for BritBox. But that's it. I'm on the hunt for the box set of Primeval. Or even if I can't get the box set, if I can hopefully get these season by season. There's only 5 seasons of Primeval, but that'll be a show that I'll look into in the future. Hopefully, if I can find it somewhere. But overall, Merlin, great, loved it, highly recommend it. Yeah, season 1, fantastic. I can't wait for season 2. So that is my Merlin season 1, 2008. Well, 2008 when it came out. It's not. It's currently 2022. Review of Merlin. So yeah, let's go to the end, shall we? So yeah, let's end it. Let's move because I'm really bad at these things. I'm just going to end it now. No, I'm going to end. So we have reached the end. I'm really bad at like transitioning to the end. I don't know why. It's like my brain's like I need to end, but I don't want to end. I want to keep talking. So I'm always bad about transitioning to this part. But we're here now, so no worries. So what do you think? What did you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? Did you not like Merlin when it was on? Did you never not catch it when it was on? Are you like me that you were stuck when you had to choose between like other shows and this show? Whatever you feel, let me know on Twitter at the Nerdstalgic Podcast. You can also find this podcast on Spotify. You can find it on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcast. You can also find the Nerdstalgic Podcast on YouTube. Just type in the Nerdstalgic Podcast and you'll find me and my flaming face. Currently, I'm at 42 subscribers, which is incredible. Thank you to all 42 of you that subscribed. I'm hoping before the end of the year, maybe bump that up to 50. Fingers crossed, probably won't because I know how much of a nightmare YouTube is and to get people to subscribe and to all that jazz. But if you listen to this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Hopefully, fingers crossed, by Christmas time I can get to 50 and I'll be happy. But we'll see what happens there. What else? Oh, yeah. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to rate. Underneath on my profile on Spotify, underneath is a star rating. Just click on them stars, and you can have the option between rating from 1 star to 5 stars. 5 stars being the best thing you ever heard in your life. To 1 star, Vogons doing poetry, absolute trash. Whatever you feel like is fair. 1 to 5 stars, it helps immensely. and that's that. That's all of that. So also, I want to say thank you again to Water Books for sponsoring the episode and for sponsoring the show. Again, don't forget to use the code nerdy10 at checkout. That's NERDY10, all higher case, to get 10% off at the checkout. So thank you, Water Books. And yeah, I just want to mention before I go, I do want to apologize that this one's come out a bit late than usual. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen that I announced that I am moving my um, published dates from, because I usually used to do it on a Wednesday, but I've moved it to Thursday, Friday now, mainly because it gives me more of the week to work on the episodes to plan things to make them just better for you folks. Obviously, this one came out, it's come out today on the Saturday. I'm recording it on the Saturday, so you'll be watching it today. You'll be listening to it, shall I say, on the Saturday. But I do apologize for being late. Life caught up with me, and there's loads of things I had to deal with for the past few days, so I've had to kind of put it off for as long as possible. But I knew that I had to do it today. I couldn't leave it any longer because you've got D23 coming up, which is the Disney Expo, in a day or two from now. So I want to do an episode on that one. And there's movies I've got to watch on Disney Plus, like Lightyear. I've got to do a review of Lightyear. Thor: Love and Thunder gets added to Disney Plus on September the 8th. So I've got to do a review of that one. It's like so much stuff is piling up, and obviously I've got big plans for November, so I want to get everything out the way as September as possible. So then that leaves me all of October, Halloween, to just do really loads of creepy Halloween spooky shiz. I've got big plans for Halloween, so I want to try and get as much out as possible. So I want to try get as less backlog as I can. That's why I'm a bit late. So usually I'll record it and then I'll spend a day editing. This one, if there's any errors in it, any mistakes, I do apologize. I haven't edited it. This is completely raw. You're listening to this now. So I'm doing this on the Saturday. And this is when it gets released today. So if you're listening on the Saturday, that's why it might seem a bit janky, a bit raw, a bit fewer ums and ahs. But overall, I do apologize. But that's adult life for you. It kind of sucks. But just know there are a lot of things I've got planned to come in the future, especially Halloween. I've got a lot of plans for Halloween and things that I want to do. And it's just going to be fun. It's going to be incredibly fun. So look forward to that. But we've only just started September. September is going to be just as fun as all the other months. So strap in. And yeah, just thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for staying till the end to listen to me apologize. Most people probably left before I even did any sort of my socials. So if you're still listening, thank you very much. And yeah, that is it. That's all she wrote. So I'm going to stop babbling now, stop waffling. And yeah, so as always, thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. It is a great honor and pleasure to be talking to you every week. Thank you for joining me. I hope you can join me on the next one. And I'll catch you on the flippy flop. So, cheerio.